o'clock. What's going on? It is just after 5 o'clock Eastern in the evening on Wednesday, October 23rd, and all of a sudden you blink and it's week 8 of this NFL season. The 5-2 Ravens will battle the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland coming up on Sunday, and Jameis Winston will be under center, his first start of the year. Of course, Deshaun Watson tears that Achilles. No Dorian Thompson-Robinson at QB1. It will be Jameis Winston. Tonight's live stream is brought to you by my friends at BetUS. More on them in just a bit. I'm glad you're here. Please like the video if you've been enjoying the content. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when I'm dropping my daily live content. I think we all remember the Ed Reed feedback when referring to the defense and what he's seen and what maybe he hasn't seen but needs to see from this group moving forward if they want to go and get to where they're trying to go.
And your Ravens are giving up some easy touchdowns here. I need a little pep talk from you, buddy.
Game over in their mind. They don't understand. So. They don't understand the other side of finishing and being a championship team right now.
Pulling no punches, the GOAT, number 20, Hall of Famer, former Ravens safety, called a spade on Monday night with Peyton and Eli. Yes, he certainly did. Quote, they don't understand the other side of finishing and being a championship team right now. That from Ed Reed on a national appearance in front of a global, really, audience. Monday Night Football, Manning cast, Eli and Peyton. And you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right. It was just not long ago, as Marlon Humphrey told us during one of his podium sessions recently, that Ed left a note. Didn't go into the specifics, but Ed confirmed that he left a note in the defensive back room not all that long ago, a word of encouragement, perhaps a word of feedback. And Ed himself, during that 20-plus minute hit segment, interview, drop-in, whatever you want to call it, with Eli and Peyton, was very, very blunt, as he was there in that snippet that I just shared. And so it would have been easy as a member of that defense, whether it be player, coach, anywhere in between, to react emotionally. But Ravens linebacker Kyle Van Noy, somebody who is a championship caliber player himself, who won a couple with Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, I thought responded in the best way you possibly could, with grace, with confidence, with accountability. And he did exactly that on his podcast with Gerald McCoy, courtesy of Yahoo Sports, earlier this week. Listen to KVN.
Some lulls at the end, which we got to figure that out. If we're trying to be a championship team, we got to cut it out. I saw the comments of Ed Reed, and he's right. You know, if we're trying to win a championship, we got to cut that out at the end of the game. And that's the difference between a good team and a great team. And we're not there yet, and that's the beauty of it. We're going to continue to work. We're going to continue to get better. There was a lot of great things in this game, but we got to cut it out at the end of the games. We are better than that, and we'll figure it out.
Got a lot of respect for the way KVN handled that, addressing it, being clear to address that on his Yahoo Sports podcast with Gerald McCoy. Quote, he's right. If we're trying to win a championship, we got to cut that out at the end of the game. We are better than that, and we'll figure it out. Guys, this pass rush did not generate very much pressure at all in the fourth quarter. And what we've too often seen over the years, especially this year, is the feet coming off the pedal, the foot coming off the gas in the fourth quarter. And it may work when you're putting up 40 burgers on the road in Tampa Bay. It may work when you're hanging 30 plus with ease in Dallas. It may work from time to time when you get a little lucky in Cincinnati because of that late Joe Burrow interception. And it may work just in general more often than not with the two-headed monster that you have that's lighting the league on fire. That is Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But I'm sorry, it's not going to work all the time, for one, and two, in January. And most importantly, it's not going to work in a way of getting you to where you need to go. And so that lack of finish, that lack of four-quarter mentality, and in this case, what we saw play out on Monday night, that lack of pressure that's being generated in crunch time leads me to continue to believe that 13 days from right now, when the NFL trade deadline comes and goes, November 5th, 4 Eastern is the deadline, I sure hope that Eric DeCosta and company address one of the elephants in the room defensively, and that is some pass rush help. The lack of pressure there is only magnifying the issues on the back end. And I know a lot of you probably want to can Marcus Williams. You probably want to rip up the contract of Eddie Jackson, even though it was relatively cheap and team friendly that he signed over the summer. And I know you probably want to do a number of I know you probably want Mike McDonald back. But the reality is, with the investments that they have tied into their secondary, to me, it continues to be bring more pass rush help in, generate more pressure in the fourth quarter when it counts, and you aren't going to have the secondary sucking wind. You aren't going to have as many blatant and egregious blown coverages, gaping holes, and big plays vertically. It starts up front. And while statistically speaking, I know Sarah and I have been tracking more so than anything else the pass rush win rate, and it's just a middle-of-the-road team right now in that category. Statistically, they're fine. But when it matters, particularly in that fourth quarter Monday night against Tampa, they weren't getting to Baker Mayfield enough, not nearly enough, and it's got to be better. Tonight's live stream is brought to you by my friends at BetUS. And I've been with these folks for about a year now. And let's take a look ahead at what the Ravens have in front of them coming up this weekend in Cleveland. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff, Browns and Ravens. And Baltimore currently 9.5-point road favorites. The over-under is set for 44.5. And as always, there's a slew of different game props that you can take a look at. The Ravens have just consistently been able to put up points, obviously, throughout this 5-game win streak. But it's always a little different in division. And, of course, it's always a little different from time to time when those trap games come up. And as the Ravens have done in recent years, in the Lamar era and prior to the Lamar era, is play down to their competition at times. Keep that in mind before you throw some money on this one. BetUS is offering a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your second and third deposits. All of that by using the promo code YouTube150. Makes you eligible for those deals. And again, bunch of different options here. I don't know, hanging 40 on Cleveland's defense. I just feel like you can wipe out. I know they've been just deplorable. They've been horrific in so many different departments. But this is an in-division game. Jameis Winston, the gunslinger that he is, making his first start. He's got absolutely nothing to lose. I think Cleveland's going to be able to put up points. I do. I'm not picking against the Ravens per se. Don't think this is going to be as much of a blowout as maybe some of you out there are expecting. Well, the Ravens got some great news on this Wednesday. And Jeff Zrebiec got it started off earlier today with Keaton Mitchell being back in the swing of things. He has now officially began his 3-week practice window. He's been sidelined since sustaining that significant knee injury last December against Jacksonville, if I'm not mistaken. He's been on the PUP list to start off this season. The Baltimore Sun was spot on in terms of when we might see him back. And so, again, that 3-week activation window is officially on. He could be back for what? Week 8, 9, 10? Potentially week 10? As Jeff notes as well, Keaton's going to need a multi-week ramp-up period, and it's going to take some time to return to the game action. But after sustaining a multi-ligament knee injury, he's made strong progress in his rehab, and he's ready for the next step. That from Jeff. On the Lightning to Derrick Henry's Thunder. And here we go. Brian Wacker of the Baltimore Sun, one of the many reporters on site earlier today. And there he is, number 34, getting some light work in. The Ravens held a walkthrough earlier today, by the way. We'll get to the injury list in just a second. But there's Keaton. You can notice, by the way, that he's got the brace on that left knee. I would imagine that will be involved throughout this rehab process, or throughout this ramping up process, if you will. But just like anything else, for a player who relies heavily on his speed, his cutting ability, his burst, especially off the edge. We saw that last year. He caught so many defenses off guard. And remember, I went back and looked too. They were kind of conserving Keaton. He was really limited last year before going down with that ACL. Gus and Justice and JK, of course, had to get their touches, and he certainly was in the middle of a by committee approach. But Keaton's rookie year, as an undrafted rookie, of course, and remember his father, Anthony, was a part of the 2000 Super Bowl winning team in Baltimore. He played in 8 games, had 396 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and a little bit in the receiving game as well. How many receptions did he have in the receiving game? 9 for 93. So I guess the beauty of it here is for Keaton, and I'm sure he's probably gung-ho and wants to get himself back in as soon as possible. But unlike maybe last year, if this were to have happened, there is literally no rush whatsoever, and that's the beauty of Derrick's presence. There is no rush to get this guy back in there. The Ravens are cooking right now offensively. They're getting a healthy dose of Justice Hill in the screen game, especially as a pass catcher. How about the way that Justice has been admirably handling his blitz pickups? And we know that we know what the King's up to. Leading rusher by a comfortable margin so far through 7 weeks of football. And the Thunder to Baltimore's soon-to-be Lightning with Keaton Mitchell and Derrick on the same field. Oh, that's going to be something. Let's open up the guest lines. I have a comment pinned right there with the access link if you'd like to come on and share a thought with me. Beltway 95 Sports will get you on in just a second. But before we do, along the injury lines, that wasn't the only encouraging news from today. Marlon Humphrey, according to Ian Rappaport, did not suffer a major knee injury last week. We all know that he left at the end of the first half in Tampa. The national broadcast on ESPN referred to it as a knee. Ian says he's walking around with little discomfort. His status is up in the air. He did miss practice today, even though it was a walkthrough. And Rap Sheet says time's going to will tell how quickly he can recover. And spoiler alert, the Ravens do have some questions at corner. We'll get to that injury report in just a second, which begs the question, who will they lean on if a couple guys end up going down and not become available for Sunday in Cleveland? Guest lines are open. I'm glad you guys are here with me tonight. Over 500 of you joining me concurrently. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when I'm dropping my daily live content. And Beltway, what you got for me tonight?
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
What's your name again?
James. My show is Beltway 95 Sports, so I know
James, okay.
Yeah. So I was talking to my uncle. My uncle's a nice fan of yours. Captain Defense.
Oh, he's your uncle.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. So he's my mom's oldest brother. So this is my first time doing anything live, but it's just excitement about the new Ravens right now, and I'm listening to the radio earlier today about the negativity about Lamar Jackson, and I was telling what he puts up. I don't know if it's just talking points or is it what some people really feel, but people here in the Baltimore area, we really don't want to listen to that nonsense. Lamar Jackson is doing really great for the team right now, and the sky's the limit, especially with Derrick Henry. And now we're just saying that Keaton Mitchell might be possibly coming back to the team pretty soon. I mean, he could definitely give Derrick Henry a break because we're going to need him far down the line. So what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. That's the beauty of it, right? It's they're already conserving Derrick. There were times this past Monday night, that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on the ESPN broadcast were wondering and speculating whether or not Derrick was hurt because he was on the sideline.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden he breaks off for 81. It's just soul crushing. It really is. It is so defeating. We keep using the word demoralizing, and it is. Just ask Cincy about that in overtime, right? Just ask the Commanders about that in under 2 minutes in the fourth quarter. And of course, ask Tampa Bay about that, with 81 late in the second half. So they've always had one closer. We've talked about that time and time again. But now they have a bona fide complimentary closer who is somehow, some way, an ascending player at 30. He'll turn 31 in December. He leads the league in rushing. He's on pace to potentially break Eric Dickerson's single season record.
Yep, 2000.
And the Ravens, they took a chance, right? They took a calculated chance on day 2 of free agency. They paid him when other teams wouldn't. And you can only help but think that Jerry Jones is somewhere.
I know Dallas really wish they would have pulled the trigger on that one.
My man's got to be somewhere in his glass house thinking to himself, what the hell am I doing as this team's GM? And you know what, Jerry? No one knows.
I tell you, I worked for years for the Commanders as a medic. I was a firefighter for Prince George's County for 20 years. And looking at Dan Snyder for all those years and the ownerships of different teams, I don't know if it's a money thing, they just want to pull the trigger. But I'm glad Jerry Jones did what he did because now the Ravens can reap all the rewards and benefits. And like I said, I remember the Colts and now the Ravens and like I said, I'm almost 50 years old. So being a Baltimore fan since that time, but it's just exciting to see what Lamar Jackson brings to not just the Ravens, but the community in itself. And going down to the stadium, and sometimes I go with my uncle and he gets in his car and he starts to put his Captain Defense gear on. And I just see how the people relate to him and see the excitement. And that's what it's about. It's about the fans. It's about people like you that have a platform that share it with regular, ordinary people and makes them feel special. So I'm just excited what the possibilities to come. And Lamar Jackson. I forgot about Bateman. Yes, he sent the tweet out to me, and like I said, just glad to see him back in the fold, and I'm just excited. And like I said, you can tell in my voice, like I said, it's my first time doing anything live, whatever. So I'm just excited the possibilities.
I'm glad you're here.
Platform.
Absolutely, I'm glad you're here. Obviously, just a couple weeks removed from a tremendous DMV battle. I know Baltimore's not the DMV, but everybody knows what I mean by that.
Yes.
And the fact that it was a relevant battle, one that was easily one of the hottest tickets of this entire season between Washington and Baltimore was pretty cool and a sign of the times, I think, as well. Having turned a big, page in that chapter, really closed close the chapter of the Dan Snyder era, and new ownership, new coach, new franchise quarterback, lots of pieces around him. So I think I speak for a lot in the area that can appreciate that every 4 years, right? Every 4 years, unless it's going to be in February, I look
Yes.
forward to some competitive matchups between those two teams. And I'll get you out of here on this too, James, because Captain Defense, while I've only interacted with him once or twice, your uncle in person, Sarah and I, I'll speak for her when I say this, he really supports us and has since
Yes, he
day
does.
one
Yes, he does.
for our show. And he's constantly sharing it. He's constantly lifting us up, constantly encouraging us, and it does not go unnoticed. So love the family ties there, and I appreciate you calling in tonight.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. And like I said, I love your platform and just keep doing what you're doing. And like, this is my first time ever doing this, and it's really exciting to do it. So hopefully I get a chance to do it. I know you did a game last week, I think, the Battle Beltway, and I couldn't get on at the time, whatever. But I love this platform. It's really wonderful. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Won't be the last, James. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank
Enjoy yourself this football season. The guest lines are open, by the way, if you haven't already noticed. Evan, we'll get to you in a second. Michael, same thing for you. You guys can click on a link that I have included in the show notes, and the waiting room is packed. I love it. We'll get to as many as I possibly can tonight. But again, Marlon Humphrey did not practice today in a glorified walkthrough, okay? But as we learned from Ian Rappaport, encouraging news, it's not a serious knee injury. And thank God, because look at what he's been over the last 2 weeks. The league's highest graded corner, a 92 overall grade, the next best at his position, almost 10 points below him, 83-2. Pro Football Focus, obviously, as we always say, isn't the gospel, but pretty damn near close. And 44, 2 massive first half interceptions that really changed the complexion of that game on Monday night. Somebody who, for his standards, both statistically and availability wise, was not where he wanted to be a year ago. And so far, so good for Marlon. Let's hope Ian's reporting and source is leading him in the right direction, as it typically does. Ian Rappaport, NFL insider, and that Marlon avoided a significant knee injury, because we saw him squatting on the sideline. Sarah and I played that for you earlier in the week. And because of what's going on in this corner room right now, by the way, to transition quickly to the injury report, which again is an estimation, this corner room, there's some question marks in the early going this week leading into the weekend. Jalen Armour-Davis with a hamstring was limited. So he's back in the picture, by the way. Jalen obviously was put on IR a few weeks ago. He's been designated for return to practice, but not somebody that you have a whole lot of trust in, right? Respectfully, just haven't seen a whole lot of him over his years here. Kind of similar to his fellow former 4th-round pick in 2022, Pepe Williams, who's not even with the team anymore. He may be on the practice squad right now, but I don't think he's been back and forth a little bit here recently. Marlon, of course, as I mentioned, was a DNP. TJ Tampa, the rookie, a DNP. And maybe the most out of the blue one, or maybe the most surprising, was Nate Wiggins, who popped up with a shoulder designation and a DNP today. Again, it's just a walkthrough. Perhaps they're just being cautionary, but those are a few things that I'm looking at going into Cleveland. Arthur Maulet, good news for him. Good chance for him to make his regular season debut on Sunday. He was limited. That knee and hamstring and that soft tissue setback that he sustained a couple weeks ago, he is within that 21-day window. He has been activated. He is back at practice. And so that's good news for a nickel corner who's highly physical, understands AFC North football, and they're going to need to rely on him should these issues continue to persist on the back end of this secondary. Outside of those names, Broderick Washington with a knee was limited. Keaton, of course, we've already mentioned. Travis Jones with an ankle, DNP. Malik Harrison missed the last couple weeks with a groin. He was limited. Zay Flowers was a DNP, and that's something that we're going to have to look at closely because of the way that ankle was rolled up on. Not a hip drop tackle. I know some of you thought it was a hip drop tackle. But Zay and how uninvolved he was after that play, I want to see how he progresses this week. Could be big, big afternoons coming up on Sunday for Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman if Zay can't go. And Rasheen Ali was a DNP with an ankle. Back to the guest lines we go. I'm glad you guys are here. Over 600 of you joining me concurrently tonight. We'll go Evan, Michael, Ron, and Manuel. The waiting room's busy. Okay, you guys feeling good on this Wednesday? Well, I am as well. What's up, dude?
What's up, Bobby?
How are you, bro?
I'm just walking to the car, doing well. Two things. The first thing is, I don't know if you guys covered it on the lunch hour, but did you see Nick Wright trying to throw shade at Lamar for being named or being in the MVP discussion every year? Like it was some sort of like got you moment of like, this guy has been one of the top quarterbacks every season. And I'm not sure where he was going with that, but I'm not really sure how that's a bad thing.
But wasn't it the cross comparison to Joel Embiid?
No, I don't think they went in that direction. I think it was more of just like, I think what he was trying to say was like, in October, Lamar is great, but in Feb, and it was just one of those like, what has he done in the playoff moments? But it's just like, it's such a tired conversation that I just don't understand how even throwing the fact that he's been, like I said, in the MVP discussion, quite literally every year, and the only times he hasn't really finished in that discussion is the years he's been injured. So I don't really understand how that was where he was going with that. But anyways, the real thing I want to talk about was Keaton Mitchell, because I'm happy that he's coming back, but I'm also like, how are we even going to work him into this rotation? Like, with the way Justice is playing, do we really want to, like, who are we taking carries away from right now? Who are we taking off the field to get this guy on the field? And it's just one of those things where, like I said, in Monken we trust, but I definitely have some questions as far as how this offense is going to look when we have three running backs. I mean,
I'm actually not as worried about that. You want to know why I'm not as worried about that? Because I think he's still, not only is he still weeks out from the ramp-up period being finished, but then on top of that, I just think they're going to have him on a pitch count when he does return. And much like last year, playing behind Gus and JK, I think that's just kind of how it's going to go seniority-wise.
Right. And I guess the other point is, like, he don't need many carries. Like, he's busting out 50-yard runs. I mean, he was getting, like, what? He was averaging, like, what, 9 yards per carry last season?
Let me get that number right now.
It's absurd, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous here. Yards per 10.3.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I think he only had 40 or 50 carries or something. I don't know. It wasn't a lot, but
47.
So pretty much on the money there. But yeah. So I guess, I mean, like what you're saying, like, he doesn't need many carries, and if he can come in the fourth quarter, when the defense is kind of already gassed from getting run over by Derrick Henry and Lamar for 45 minutes, then yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in that. And then the other side of the coin is, I think that them resting Derrick Henry in the first half on Monday night was intentional. I think they were trying to tire this this Tampa Bay defense out with no huddle and quick plays in the first half, and it's like, just wait till the third quarter because we're going to unleash the beast. And that's exactly what
that's the beauty of it, right? Moving forward, if they continue to go with that, assuming that was, and by the way, I'm gonna let you go, Evan. Appreciate the call, brother.
Totally.
As always, and I think continuing on that for a second, if they do want to continue to conserve or be careful with Derrick, or let's just say be mindful of Derrick's workload, then that's where, when Keaton is outside his pitch count reps or whatever, that's when he can become more available to you, right? But I wouldn't even be worried about it for maybe like another month plus, to be honest with you. John Harbaugh is actually speaking with the media right now, and beat reporters are tweeting out snippets. John says that the goal is to get Keaton back in a game within the 3-week window that starts today. He wants to see him practice, cut, and protect himself. Don't expect him to play on Sunday, obviously. And again, all of these numbers, all of these are just coming in right now. It looks like the Ravens began their press conference a little bit early. So there you have it. Back to the guest lines we go, Michael. Let's get you in here, then Ron, then Manuel. I appreciate you guys waiting today. Over 650 concurrently watching. Please like the video if you're enjoying tonight's show. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. And hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when I'm dropping my daily live content. Talk to me, brother. Michael.
Hey, what's going on, Bobby?
What you got for me tonight? Good to see you again.
Oh, you too. Well, Evan just reminded me of something. Your boy Nick Wrong. I'm happy to argue against him any day. I try not to give him the energy, but he is obscenely annoying when it comes to Lamar. He just does not want to give him his credit where credit is due, but he's going to learn the hard way.
He's been, by the way, I quickly Googled maybe what I was referencing with that whole Embiid cross comparison comment that I made. And sure enough, here it is. It's Nick Wright says that Lamar is, quote, no different than a prime James Harden and Joel Embiid, meaning they're first ballot Hall of Famers, but unreliable in the biggest spots of the year. And so, look, you're going to get to a certain point where everybody's going to come from different angles. Not everybody, but certain people like a Nick Wright, a noted Chiefs fan, by the way, will take certain angles no matter what you do. He's going to be the exact same guy. Okay, I guarantee you, if, whatever you want to call it, we'll put good mojo into the air. When Lamar wins the Super Bowl, he will have a certain angle that he takes. That's just the type of personality he is. And you know what? So be it. But look, Joel and James, two of the greatest scorers, two of the in Joel's case, one of the greatest big men to have ever suited up on an NBA floor, right? So it's funny to view that as like a shot. We know through a small sample size, Lamar has, kind of there's been less to be desired in postseason games so far. Would he have a couple more if it weren't for two, not one, but two number one seeds where you get to skip wild card weekend? Yeah, his resume would probably look a whole lot different than it does right now. But that's not the case. That's not how they do it. And so be it. Here we are. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a tangent there.
No, it's okay. Nick Rome does that. The main thing I wanted to get out was that on the defense, I still feel that Zach Orr is leaving a little bit to be desired. But I was also thinking that look at the quarterbacks that they've had to face so far. Yeah, they've imploded in the fourth quarter, for various reasons, but they've had to face a murderous row of quarterbacks, unlike a lot of these defenses and stuff that they're talking about, compared. So is it a defense that we, are used to? No, but at the same time, I think that it looks considerably worse because of who they've had to play.
Now, Michael, I think that's a great point. Something that needs to be discussed and acknowledged because of the murderer's row beginning of the year and a first-year defensive play caller who just brought in Dean Pease to be his senior advisor, and hopefully slow things down and take things off his plate just a couple weeks ago. Along those lines, again, John Harbaugh is at the podium right now, and there are 3 corners that missed practice today, including Marlon Humphrey. I get it. It was just a walkthrough, but it's notable when you've had that many back-end issues as they've had. And so one note from John Harbaugh on Marlon Humphrey, he says everyone, first and foremost, missing from practice today has a chance to play against the Browns. He's hopeful, which he's said in the past about Marlon with that knee, but wouldn't go anywhere farther than that. So he's hopeful Marlon Humphrey might be ready for Sunday. He said that none of the guys who missed practice today have been ruled out definitively for Sunday, and we'll know more later in the week. So that's the John Harbaugh update as we speak.
Well, with TJ Tampa, have we even sniffed him on the field yet? Because I feel like he hasn't seen the field yet at all.
Primarily special teams. Yeah. Same thing with Devontae Walker, if you're wondering, on the other side of the ball. I know some were like, did he make his debut? Yes, he made his debut on Monday night as a special teamer. So yeah, Michael, appreciate the call, brother.
Always. Have a good one.
You too. The live chat has a pinned comment, by the way, guys, if you'd like to call in and share a thought with me tonight, just after 5:40 Eastern time here in Baltimore on a glorious day. Just friggin' glorious. Ron, we'll get you in here in just a second. Manuel, appreciate you guys waiting. I'm trying to do a little bit of multitasking here because I didn't think the press conference was supposed to start till 6 o'clock. So just trying to keep you guys up to date with the fresh things coming down the timeline. And this came down earlier. Jameis Winston, as I mentioned off the top, will start under center for the 1-6 Cleveland Browns. Deshaun's season is done. I think a lot of people in Cleveland are hoping that he's done, but that's a conversation for another day. And on top of that big change, there's a play calling change as well. Kevin Stefanski is handing over the offensive play calling duties to Ken Dorsey, who they brought in this past offseason. Remember, he got let go in season by the Buffalo Bills. And then Ed Werder, former ESPN reporter, with an interesting note, especially if you're going to be throwing some money around at betus.com. You might want to keep this in mind. Cleveland's the only team yet to score at least 20 points in any game this season. Or maybe is the only team. Oh, okay. Cleveland's the only team yet to score at least 20 points in any game this season. Yeah. There's been a lot of issues in Browns country. So much so they've become sellers. If they let go of Myles Garrett, I don't know if anybody's going to be buying tickets the rest of the way. In the next 2 weeks, if they let Amari Cooper, which they already have let walk out, and Myles Garrett, and Deshaun Watson's down for the year, it's going to be an all-out ghost town in Cleveland. Bodes well for the Ravens moving in there. I can't imagine. I saw a few of the ticket prices. You can get in there for $22 on Sunday. What a joke. Far cry from the Ravens Commanders the other day. Good Lord. Back to the guest lines we go. Ron, great to see you. Appreciate the call. How you doing tonight?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Hey, couple things. Michael kind of stole a little bit of my thunder, so I'm gonna shift gears on like you have to do on a regular basis, and talk about Kurt Warner. You guys did some great interviews with Kurt and with Steve Young last year.
You emailed us. I saw that.
I did.
Yes,
you got
yes.
it. Okay. So
yeah.
My thing, and I'll just bring it up since we're here, but really, honestly, those interviews were so fantastic, and the insight that he had, and both of them, both quarterbacks were so spot on with Lamar. And I really feel that Lamar is exactly doing exactly what Kirk was talking about, hitting the layups. Didn't mean check downs, layups being those 20-yard in routes that he's got an open receiver. He's nailing them. He's on time. And via Rich Eisen brought in a conversation that Kirk had done, and I just watched this like a half an hour ago, so it's fresh. Kurt Warner was talking about exactly that, and he was saying how even though Lamar is hitting these little plateaus, he's still got room to grow. So we might be still in for more of a treat. I don't know how it can get better, but that's what Kirk said. So
I'm so glad that you. Yeah. By the way, obviously, Sarah and I always say we try to read every single one. We never get around to answering every single one, which is just sort of the nature of the beast this time of year. But I'm so glad that you referenced our week one conversation with the Hall of Famer, right? Kurt Warner. He was both he and Steve Young. We've been so fortunate over the last calendar year, to have spent some virtual time with, who I think have unique opinions based on the way in which they played, respectively, the quarterback position. And so, to your point, this layup reference to the naked eye, or in layman's terms, might come across to some as like, oh yeah, like you said, the dink and dunks, or the check downs, or this, that, and the other. But no, it's really the game within the game. And we've seen on top of that, the autonomy that he's had at the line of scrimmage. He's making his checks accordingly, his cadence, the terminology, right? Everything that some have questioned throughout his journey, whether or not he has that in him. Well, they're awfully quiet these days, because Lamar not only, Ron, is this statistic. I just checked into this last night just to make sure. He's a top 5 passer through 7 weeks, and he's a top 11 rusher, and that's not just among quarterbacks. That is league-wide with all running backs. This guy's a front runner MVP for a reason. Vegas thinks so. All the national analysts, for the most part, think so. Even Aaron Schatz, who was the one dude, right, the inventor of DVOA, who was the one voter that didn't cast it towards Lamar last year, even he agrees. This is a special run. It's a special run that we're all witnessing right now, and I hope everybody in Baltimore is appreciating this.
Well, I know you got a busy show, and yes, we are enjoying it. So I know you got a busy show. So I want to make one other quick point, real quick. Rich Eisen also talked about Lamar in a different kind of way. So please, I think it'd be worth you checking out. It's something that I can see you guys jumping on. It was really kind of about how Lamar, a couple of years ago, he had a meeting because he was calling a game for the Ravens. This was, I believe, late in 2022. And he talked about what John had said, what does Lamar say when he comes off the field after a certain thing? And, this is when Lamar was actually injured, but he was talking about him earlier in the year. And he said, well, what did you see on that play? And Lamar would say something, just playing ball, coach. And so that's what his thinking was. And that was prior to Todd Monken.
Yeah,
I bet right now he would give a completely different answer. I saw this, coach, and this is why I went there. That is the empowerment that Todd Monken, I believe, has brought to the table. Didn't want to waste your time. I didn't want to, run too long.
Oh God, no. Well, well said. And again, thank you for thinking of us when it comes to the content side of things and the angles that we've been, obviously lucky to have shared with Kurt and Steve, just brilliant football minds. And speaking of, Lamar Jackson's at the podium right now, and he thinks that Derrick Henry is probably, let's see what he said here. He thinks that he's going to break Eric Dickerson's single season rushing mark. Well, how could you not, from what we've seen after 7 weeks? I appreciate you, Ron. Thanks so much for calling in tonight.
All right. Peace out.
All right, the live chat is rolling tonight. We've got over 650 of you concurrently watching, and Lamar Jackson is at the podium as we speak. It's there for the taking. Eric Dickerson's longtime single-season rushing record potentially in sight for King Henry in year one in a Raven uniform. Wouldn't that be something? Ho-ho. To Mexico City we go. Welcome inside the channel, my friend, as always. What you got for me tonight?
What I got? Well, yeah, I think Henry can do it. Not only that, I think we can have a different, I don't think triple crown, but more so multiple crown. Derrick Henry, Offensive Player of the Year with that record. Lamar Jackson, MB3, Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl ring.
Literally.
Back to ball. And I know we don't want this award going to Todd Monken, being the offensive coordinator of the year, because we want him to stay in Baltimore. Please. We don't want another situation like Gary. I don't know if you remember the Gary Kubiak situation.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he arrived in 2014. The offense was humming.
Yeah.
And then the next year he went to head coach on Denver. I know he won with Peyton Manning on his last year, but that hurt us a lot because we didn't have any sense of cohesion on the offense. And the defense was reeling.
I would not be surprised if they're in a very similar situation, just obviously within 2 years, that Philadelphia had a couple years ago. Right? Philly goes to the Super Bowl, get both their offensive and defensive coordinators plucked, and have really struggled to get back to a stable force, and they're trying. But what they lose? 6 of their last 7 or something last year, or 6 in a row to finish off the year. So it's very hard. We're seeing that now in Baltimore, defensively speaking, with so much turnover. But if, like we've always said, if they can rip off wins the way they are right now because of the offense carrying the defense, then it'll just allow Zach Orr to buy time that he needs to get some of this lack of execution down, to allow Dean Pease to take an overhead view of everything and start to figure out the ways in which he can help out Zach and take things off his plate if need be. So
yeah. Oh, two things because I want to say one, but you reminded me of one. 2012, if you recall, like at mid part of the season, the defense was like we're seeing today, just not that this lack of bleeding, but the offense was carrying us to victories. So I think that's an interesting perspective. 12 years of separation, and it's almost similar.
Right.
The other thing, I want your thoughts on this. If we get Cooper Kupp, who do you see go to the practice squad, or how do you see Cooper Kupp helping us, not just on the wide receiver end, but more so scheme-wise?
Well, he's a great slot guy.
Yeah.
He's a great slot guy. Oh, who the hell would go off the active roster? I mean, would they flirt? No. Yeah, roster-wise, I'd have to think about that for a second. But in terms of the scheme, yeah, he'd be their slot. He'd be a slot guy for him. He'd be a possession kind of guy, speedy guy. But here's the problem. These last few years since he won that Super Bowl MVP with the Rams, availability just hasn't been a thing, which is why I'm sure it's one of the many reasons that he's being shopped the way he is by the Rams, like openly shopped. Don't they play tomorrow night? I think they play tomorrow night.
Yeah, they play tomorrow night, but I don't think he's going to have that much of an impact.
Yeah, maybe not. He may not even play if this happens between now and then. But yeah, I just believe it when I see it that they go after a wide receiver prior to the deadline. I think that report that came out yesterday about them at least preliminarily checking in with Zadarius Smith is a good indicator that they feel like they can get better up front. And I would agree.
Yeah, I think the defense, it's more so like Troy Aikman was saying, it's communication issues. Because it's like, I don't know if they don't trust fully the Zach system in terms of terminology, but it's like I'm seeing Roquan taking his own decisions. But it's affecting the whole communication thing between him, Hamilton, and even on the front with Nnamdi and Owe.
Yeah, no, it's all three phases just haven't been good enough, especially in the fourth quarter. I think Rowe's got a lot on his plate. He's the green dot communicator. He's got essentially a rookie starting alongside him in Trenton Simpson, who's not an every down guy. You've got potentially some trust issues going on between level 2 and level 3. The new system obviously is yes, it's new, but at the same time, there's enough principles there from past years with Mike, being that Zach was a part of that staff, to expect more cohesion than we've seen. And when you have the amount of money that they have tied into investment-wise, that secondary, I would find it hard to believe that ends up being the area that they identify as one that needs to be brought in with, more talent and giving up valuable draft compensation for it. I think that would be, they'd be better served to go get somebody who, like a Zadarius Smith, understands the system, still has some juice left in the tank, only 32, knows Baltimore, has that familiarity, but most importantly, from a base salary standpoint, I mean, it's peanuts, and that's exactly what they got last year from Jadeveon and Kyle.
Yep.
So anyway, appreciate the call, brother, as always.
All right, see you,
my man. Appreciate you guys for being here tonight. And of course, this made some news earlier along the lines of the trade deadline buzz. The Titans are finalizing a deal to send DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs in exchange for a 5th rounder that could potentially become a 4th rounder. Talk about slot. This guy, you watch, he's going to be a problem in the slot, that intermediate game with Patrick Mahomes. And what do the Chiefs continue to do? Well, really whatever Mahomes needs. You lose Marquise Brown. You lose Rashee Rice. You lose Juju Smith-Schuster, at least for the time being. All right, we're going to go get D-Hop. We're going to go get DeAndre Hopkins. We're going to bring him in. Isaiah Pacheco is down for them as well right now. They're decimated, and yet they're the lone unbeaten team around the league. They've been there, done that. And it's a problem until a team says otherwise. It's just a wealth of experience, a wealth of understanding what's needed and what's not this time of year. And my God, the rich continue to get richer. I know probably some of you are looking at his numbers, looking at his recent injury history and thinking to yourself, he's washed. He's this, he's that. Not in Kansas City, he ain't. I wouldn't be betting on that. For the fourth straight week, a Raven, meanwhile, has been named the AFC Offensive Player of the Week. And it was Lamar Jackson, as we learned right before our lunch hour live stream earlier today. Prior to that, it was Derek. Prior to that, it was Lamar. And then prior to that, it was Derek again. 4 straight weeks. Unbelievable run from the two-headed monster right now. Lamar is currently at the podium right now. He was asked about how dangerous the Ravens' rushing game is. And instead of entertaining the idea, he talked about all aspects of the offense and how it needs to improve. Sarah just tweeted this a short while ago as she transcribes it. Quote, "We got to keep getting better each and every week because we still make little small hiccups in games where we're stopping drives and putting teams away early." As for Keaton Mitchell, Lamar says, quote, "I'm loving it, but just keep getting better. I want you to be 1,000% when you're out there." That's the luxury of having a rushing attack the way they do right now. You don't rush a guy back. Keaton in no way needs to be rushed back into the fold. Exciting news for a couple former Ravens. Candidates for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2025 have been trimmed to 50 modern era players. And a few Raven greats made the cut. Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata, and Marshall Yonda all made the list of the final 50. This will be trimmed down as well, even smaller in a few weeks from now. And a few other former Ravens, as Jeff notes on X, made the list of 50 finalists as well. The late Steve McNair, Anquan Bolden, Steve Smith Sr., Ben Coates, Willie Anderson, Eric Williams. Oh, wow. And Earl Thomas. What a tenure he had in Baltimore. An unforgettable tenure. Genuinely, I hope he's doing well because he's had some run-ins with various law stuff, family stuff, legal stuff since his NFL career came to a screeching halt. So, genuinely wish he's okay. But with that, Chef Trez will get you next time. I'm going to go do a sunset walk because I didn't get one in last night. And it's the exact same time, or it's a little bit earlier than this time last night. So I'd like to get this in. As always, thanks to BetUS for sponsoring my channel. Would love for you guys, if you haven't already done so, to hit me up across all platforms. You can join the Bobby Baltimore Patreon community by visiting the show notes below. You can connect with me on Instagram this football season at Bobby Baltimore. It's the same handle on Twitter or X. And if you'd like to donate, and you don't want to do so through Patreon or the Super Chat donation feature here on YouTube, Venmo and Cash App are always great ways to do so. Like the video on your way out of here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified. Join the Bobby Baltimore Discord server. It's a 24/7 hub for conversations surrounding Baltimore sports. Sarah and I will be back. And by the way, I have one little announcement. Thank you, Tila, for the reminder. I have decided to step away from the roundtable. I just felt like I needed to cut back in some way in one area, and that was one that I chose to do. So Zach and Zay and Zim and Mark and those guys, I enjoyed working with them. I enjoyed the roundtable sports community for having me a part of it. I just kind of felt like I needed to step away, work on the other things that I have on my plate. I really value my weeknights, and it was kind of getting exhausting with 3 streams per day. I'll do that once or twice a week, but 3 streams a day was getting to be a little bit too much. So I know it's a bummer. I know you guys enjoyed the banter. You enjoyed the dynamic there with all the personalities and Zim and all that stuff. But I just kind of felt like it was in my best interest. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding there. And with that, Sarah and I will catch up with you guys tomorrow. Thursday, Ravens Lunch Hour live stream, and we're really going to start to kind of sink our teeth into this Week 8 matchup in Cleveland. So with that, thanks to BetUS for sponsoring this episode. Thanks to all of you. I appreciate you guys for being here. Have a fantastic Wednesday night. I'll catch up with you soon. Later.